Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back. Sorry about that. Welcome back. It is Monday, September 9th, 2024. And I have to put out a disclaimer. First, hello, fellow comrades. And I think it's appropriate to ask that if any of y'all out there are supporting this platform are operatives for President Putin and the Russian state, and you ever donate to this platform, being that this is a crowd-funded platform, and I really don't know all of the people out there that help support this platform and keep it on the air. If you are in fact a fellow comrade working for President Putin, I need to ask you to disclose some of this, since at this point in time, anybody that speaks out against the establishment is Russian, Russian, Russian. So that's kind of going to be where we're going to start today's nonsense and shenanigans off with. But first and foremost, guys, make sure that you get plugged in over on Substack. There's a link scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. It's free to subscribe over there. The best way to find your way to the Substack is through the link or from whatsupcanada.org. That's where we include all of the documents, the receipts, the links, the videos, the graphics, whatever we use on a show the night before. You guys all have access to it there on Substack. So that is the best place to get plugged in first. Of course, give us a thumbs up and a share on Rumble or whatever platform you are watching this from. For now, we are still streaming on Facebook and YouTube. I was suspended there for 2 weeks, but back on YouTube. X, of course, still on Instagram, Rumble, and Wimkin, and of course, whatsupcanada.org. You can watch all of our shows live there as well. No subscription, no charge, no paywalls. You can just go there and you can hit play on whatever show is there, and you can watch it. So where we going to start tonight with a little bit of my dystopian humor. That wasn't supposed to be the first show or first story. This will be the first story, actually. I just found out today that anyone who is critical of the liberal government is considered a Russian operative. 75% of the country is now an operative. He's referring to anybody that opposes Justin Trudeau. I'm waiting for the allegations, that we all should be getting or are getting a cut of the $10 million from Moscow. Everyone should be expecting their 33% or 33 cent payout from Putin. So we're not the only ones addressing this. I'm just going to move this other story around. I kind of wanted to leave that one to a little bit further down the road. That's part and parcel for where we're at here in Canada, as far as for where he's referring to 70% of Canadians oppose Justin Trudeau. I can't argue with him, particularly if you look at the polling numbers, which I'm going to start watching here a little bit more closely when we get to another story here a little bit further down the show. But yeah, it's pretty much looking like the popular vote seat projection is not going in the Liberals' favor. They're projected to get to lose 77 seats right now, and Conservatives going up. All in all, you guys know I have to tell you that I don't really put a lot of faith or stock in polls. I think they are projection. They are manufactured narrative to tell people what to expect, so that when they get another election stolen or their representative placed, they can say, "See, I told you so." So that's kind of in the beginning what polls do, and even some of the liberals are saying the quiet part out loud. Trudeau Liberal MP Talib Nur Mohammed recently told a journalist that he shouldn't be criticizing the Liberals because his paper wouldn't be in business were it not for the subsidies that the government that you hate put in place. So even the even the arrogant are starting to commandeer from that perspective of don't complain, we got your paycheck, we own you, and that's it. But so actually, before we get to that one, this Russia, this latest installment of Russia, um, wash, rinse, repeat of 2016. We're going to watch a clip there from Ezra in just a minute, but I wanted to start with a statement from Lauren Southern, who's accused or allegedly a part of this diabolical Russian infiltration and election interference. Okay. Well, what did Lauren have to say about this finally after a couple of days? She says, I hope you can all appreciate why I've taken my time to make a statement. What has happened with the DOJ indictments and tenant media is obviously a serious matter. I'm treating it as such. A few short facts. I'm not accused of any crimes, and the allegations I've read about in the indictment were unknown to me. I believe I have done nothing wrong. I always put a significant effort into making original and thoughtful videos. My contract gave me full editorial control of all my content. As for the speculation about my compensation mirroring other public numbers, this is simply not true. I also understand that CNN reported Lauren Southern is actually the stage name of Lauren Chen. It is not. They are two absolutely separate individuals. This is incorrect as well, she says. We are two separate people. The one thing I will say that generally applies no matter the situation or your politics is that I would highly recommend patience with conclusions until more information is available. Appreciate all those who are approaching the story with temperance. I will not be commenting further on this matter at this point in time, and I don't blame her. At this point, she's right. This is serious for her and her position, doing very much exactly what we do here on this platform, but with a much larger reach. And that's, in essence, what all the people that were alleged to have done something wrong. The indictment itself is kind of a little bit twisted in how it's worded, but it's kind of accusing them of being useful idiots, of being dummies, and that's kind of they're being indicted, they're being canceled around the world. People are going after all of them as being traitors, but yet without a shred of evidence, and the actual indictment makes them look like they were used idiots. So this is at the end of the day, this is all the smoke and mirrors, I guess, that they use to shut people down, to disappear them. We've talked about that at some length in uh, different capacities and different individuals, and I fully expect my name to be on that block at some point too, as gov.exe was mocking. And this is a serious matter when it comes down to what they are justifying in the public space for them to do. And we'll talk about more of that and how it intersects with some of the other things in just a few minutes. But this honestly, guys, we're gonna get to watch this one together. It's not very often I play a rebel piece on here, but when Ezra's going after CBC, it's my expectation that he's going to kind of put his head on the chopping block and pretend like he's in threat and danger, and probably ask for a donation at the end of it. But if he's going to rail on CBC, I want us to all be kind of clear on what the railing is about, because I think this is something that we need to we need to be wary of in the propaganda programming information wars. So let's hear from Ezra.
Days ago, the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI, which are a little bit compromised, I think most
Captured.
people agree when it comes to political matters, they indicted, I think is the phrase they use in the States, two Russian nationals, two citizens of Russia, who are alleged to have worked with the Russian propaganda TV station called RT, or it used to be called Russia Today, to set up a company in the United States that hid all traces of the Russian control and Russian money, to set up this company in Tennessee, run by a fairly well-known conservative YouTube talent, recruiting other conservative YouTube talent. And according to the shocking document released by the Department of Justice, they recruited other talent, paying them up to $100,000 a video. I have to tell you, that's the most astonishing thing of it. The fact that Russia is interested in influencing the U.S. or any country's debate.
But yet giving them full creative freedom, not asking them to undermine America. I think that this is, there is something to this, but not as it's being portrayed. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Is not that surprising, although it's always interesting. But the fact that they were paying up to $100,000 a video is the most astonishing thing I've ever heard. You know, $400,000 a month some of these folks were making for 4 videos. Now, the company is called Tenet, T-E-N-E-T Media, and they announced yesterday that they're shutting down because of this Department of Justice investigation. Tenet Media was run by a young woman originally from Montreal named Lauren Chen and her husband Liam, who since relocated to Tennessee. And I remember when Tenet Media was born, they hired some very interesting people that I would call sort of the dissident right. Tim Pool, who actually started off on the Occupy Wall Street type side of things. I think he's one of the smartest guys in the business, by the way. Very clever, very thoughtful. I had the pleasure of being on a show once. Benny Johnson, who you might know from the States.
I like Benny Johnson. I'm not really a Tim Pool fan. Occasionally, I'll listen to a guest that he has that interesting conversation. I find Tim Pool quite arrogant myself personally, and but America has the right to free speech, does it not? I got to send a shout out here. I can't pull a comment up for some reason or another, but thanks, Mighty Mouse, for this super chat over on Rumble, saying this is 100% Canadian money. Thank you. You get the humor there in that. Yeah, so thank you very much for that. Don't get many of those, so it's a bit of a surprise. Thank you. But I like Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson is somebody that he's on my daily scroll and catch up list. I love some of his shorts. He picks up great points and shares them out. So I think that this is, a collected attack on some of the less superstars, the more vulnerable, the probably some of the less expectant personalities in this space.
Sort of a Trump supporter who sometimes goes out in the field. Dave Rubin, who used to be a comedian, used to be a man in the left.
I like Dave. I've met Dave.
With Jordan Peterson, thoughtful YouTuber. Lauren Southern, one of our long ago alumni who we parted ways with I don't know, about 7 or 8 years ago now. So these were some recognizable names.
I like Lauren. We just played her the other night.
When I heard how much money they were being paid, and I checked my notes and I wrote to one of my friends. I said, "Who's behind this? Like, in what possible universe can you build a company paying people $100,000 a video?" Now there are some YouTubers who are so huge that yes, they will make $100,000 per video in ads. I don't know if you've heard of the YouTuber Mr. Beast, or I suppose some pop music. If you're getting 100 million views, sure, you'll make $100,000 or even more. But this $100,000 per video were for videos that were getting 50 or 100.
I actually think that
views,
redacted would be in that
would be
category.
worth
They get enough
$1,000
views
or
to get paid enough
$2,000
that they don't need to take
So
other
I thought
people's
something was
money,
very
and
strange.
they made lots
I
on
didn't
Fox.
quite understand it, but I didn't put a lot of thought to it. But boy, does it look different now that I see this Department of Justice memo. I mean, here, let me quote from it. A key member identified as commentator number 1 was to be paid $400,000 per month plus $100,000 signing bonus, while commentator 2's contract was for $100,000 per video. Just astonishing. So you'll see in the Department of Justice document, they don't actually name anyone other than the 2 Russian nationals who are facing charges. So Lauren Chen and her husband and these contributors, as far as we know, have not been charged with anything, although I find it hard to imagine that Lauren Chen wouldn't be charged. Some of the people I've mentioned, such as Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin, have put out statements on Twitter saying they had no idea that the money was from Russia. They were told when they asked that it was from an investor named Edward Gregorian. And frankly, if someone offered you $100,000 a video, maybe you wouldn't ask too many questions, especially.
I probably wouldn't ask too many questions either if I get to say whatever I want.
Online, especially if there was no editorial control. I mean, I suppose if someone ever said to me, Ezra, you're making videos every day, give us one of them and we'll put it on our YouTube channel and pay you $100,000 a pop. You keep doing your thing. You keep choosing your content. We won't have any say in it. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
That just sounds so fantastical and unrealistic. I hesitate even to think about it because that's just such a fantasy scenario. It would be like being asked, what happens if you win the lottery?
Right.
I suppose if I could be totally certain that I was in complete control of what I said, why wouldn't I take $100,000 a video? And if I said, well, who's behind it? And I was told some mysterious European was behind it. My spider senses might be tingling, but on the other hand, there would be a pile of money. I don't know. So I do accept
it wouldn't make it wrong.
Benny Johnson and Dave Rubin had no idea where the money came from. But I'll notice that Lauren Southern and Lauren Chen have been completely silent since the Department of Justice made their announcement. It tells me that perhaps they weren't caught off guard with things. So I watched Tenet with some eagerness because I saw, wow, they're assembling sort of this league of superheroes from conservative or dissident YouTube. And I thought it was interesting. And I was sort of waiting for the action.
I thought it was kind of like a next Blaze.
That I viewed as
something I'd like to do. I just would need the funding. That's the whole point of LGM, right?
When an anti-Semitic alt-right, I don't know, bomb thrower, jokester, comedian, I don't even know how he would be described. He's very racist, very anti-Semitic. His name is Nick Fuentes. He had some sort of a counter rally against a conservative rally, and Tenet Media covered it like it was a serious, credible political event. I was astonished by this, that something which had the formidable names I mentioned before would be giving so much attention to a fringe, bizarre, clownish, anti-Semitic character. I didn't get it. I mean, normally, if someone is that extreme, a racist, they don't have access to significant investors. They're sort of on their own citizen dissident. I thought something was funny. And I didn't pay a lot more attention to Tenet after that, but in the wake of the DOJ, Department of Justice announcement a couple of days ago, I've gone back and I've seen some of the things that Lauren Chen, the boss of Tenet, were saying, and they definitely took a turn when Tenet Media started towards anti-Semitism, which is weird, and towards being anti-Trump from the right. And what I mean by that is, you know, Lauren Chen and others in that circle, it would not be credible if they were to attack Trump from the left, because the names I mentioned are pretty much all pro-Trump. But Lauren Chen in particular was saying things like, well, Trump is not pro-life enough, I'm out, to sort of cause some dissonance and dissonance on the right. And now that these charges, these accusations of Russian money, it starts to make some sense. It runs counter to the traditional narrative that Putin wants Trump to win. Putin is supporting Russia. If you look at what the money was paid for based on Lauren Chen's own posts, it was to attack Trump, to make him seem iffy, which suggests they want, the more malleable Kamala Harris to win. I didn't really know Lauren Chen that well. I saw her out of the corner of my eye over the years, and I invited her to work with Rebel News at the time. But she was working with RT even back then. And of course, we couldn't have someone who was an RT personality also doing videos for us. And there was a strange phenomenon where she started attacking people who were pro-Israel. And generally, if you're pro-Israel, you're pro-America. I really don't know one without the other. Accusing people of taking shekels, that's Israeli money, if you were, or Jewish money, if you were pro-Israel, it's because you were taking shekels from a foreign paymaster. That's sort of an anti-Semitic slur, sort of a light anti-Semitic slur. But now that you see that Lauren Chen herself was the funnel for almost $10 million, it's even more ironic. The commentator Will Chamberlain saw this and made a point which I think is right. He says that there is no such thing as authentic anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism amongst American conservatives, or for that matter, I think Western European conservatives. And I think he's dead right. And I say this as someone, I'm 52, and I think I've been political since I was in my teens. And I literally have been to 9 out of 10 provinces. I've been all over the West where rednecks are supposed to be. In my entire life, I promise you, hand to God, I have never seen anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, anti-Israel extremism on the right. I just haven't seen it. I've seen a lot of it on the progressive left, the coalition between Islamists and woke, critical race theory, Marxist cultural activists who say that Israel is the oppressor. So I think that when you see people like Lauren Chen and others, perhaps like Andrew Tate, online taking a hardline anti-Semitic stand, now that we know that Lauren Chen was taking Russian money, I think it's worth asking, is that what caused that? Now, look, I don't think that there's anything on the face of it that's illegal about taking money from a secret investor to have a certain political point of view. I think it's perhaps unethical to not disclose that you're actually a propagandist or a salesman when you're pretending to be a business person. But I think what the criminal matter may be is that if they were working for a foreign government, doing errands for a foreign government in the United States and not registering as a foreign agent, that could be what gets them in trouble. Unfortunately, we don't have that law in Canada, which is why Canada is overrun with foreign agents. Like I said, the Department of Justice accused Lauren Chen.
Ezra probably thinks I'm a foreign agent. He doesn't like me much at all. I'm going to rail on this in just a minute.
How did some of those guys get paid? But $10 million, even real US dollars, is called that 13 million Canadian. It is a sliver of a fraction.
It is so minuscule.
What state broadcasters get away with in Canada. I mean, I see the CBC is feasting on this story because Lauren Chen, like I say, is originally from Montreal, and Lauren Southern, one of the talents, was from Vancouver. And fair enough, those two, I think, were amongst the ringleaders. But it's a little bit much for the CBC, which is a state broadcaster, to criticize Russia Today, another state broadcaster, as if the CBC is morally superior. I mean, I suppose they're more open about their state broadcaster, whereas Lauren Chen's little Russian team was secretive about it. So I suppose in that sense, the CBC is more ethical.
Oh, wow. Ezra, your sense of moral superiority never ceases to impress me, even more so. It's disturbing as well that he tries to turn everything that comes up into an anti-Semitic story. That I don't believe has anything to do with any of this. So, ew, kind of cringe there. We're not going to get into that. That's a conversation for a whole other day. But at the end of the day, these journalists had full creative rights to do what they wanted. Lauren Chen's stuff was mostly movie reviews, was pretty much all her content was. Um, but the fact that some foreign entity would choose to support an anti-establishment, not radical, not crazy media should be, a good thing, you'd think. But at the same token, if they were a bad guy, that would be how they would want to do something. But uh, comes to Ezra, I really have to be careful because I cannot afford lawyers, and he absolutely loves to slap anybody with a lawsuit the moment he is offended. So yeah, and that's really all I can say is Ezra has his own monument of morality that most of us kind of cringe at when it comes to all of these things. He loves to spin it into anything he can into his victimhood, or to something that he can follow. So where are we at here? Okay, well, I'm going to bring up this report because I see a lot of people are talking about it. Absolute travesty of justice. This is a part and parcel. They needed scapegoats. Now, I'm talking about the two gentlemen that were sentenced today, one for 6 years and one for 6 years and 6 months. So they got their 666 in there, and these gentlemen are going to have time served, which is going to be a couple of years off of their time, and perhaps with good behavior out early, but they're still looking at another year or two in prison because they dared to speak out against the establishment, and they must have scapegoats. These guys were a part of the government delusion of why they needed to invoke the Emergency Measures Act and shut down the convoy. So that's what these guys are paying the price for all of that, because they were able to manufacture a case against these guys. So I don't think that this is the end of the story there. An interesting side note: the courtroom was packed. The waiting area was packed. It was packed outside of the courtroom. This case is getting a lot of information. A lot of people are covering it, and the police were there photographing everybody who attended. That I find disturbing. And all in all, just really not cool. So, what's up next? Oh, Craig Suave, Mr. Suave, the NDP candidate campaigning on the back of the Palestinian movement in Montreal. Unfortunate there, and really makes me question how desperate the New Democratic Communist Party is to align themselves with this. So I'm going to be skipping through a whole bunch of news stuff here today, and after this one, I'll be on with Jody and Chris at TFM Report at 9 o'clock Eastern. We're going to dive into some more stuff. I'll tell you about that at the end of the show. So that was Lauren's statement. So since we're all comrades now, those of us that disagree with how our government is abusing us, I thought, I would do a little bit of Russian news. What's really in the news? Nobody's asking me to. I'm not getting paid to, but I thought y'all might be a little curious at what it's like in the Russian news. So here's a post from Che Bose. Dear Europeans, I've just paid my annual energy bill here in Moscow, Russia. It covers all electricity, heating, and all through winter, automatically from the city, and water, hot and cold, and rubbish disposal, and it cost me €146 for the entire year. that's something to consider. That's what a year's utilities, 146 euro. That's, I don't know, 170 bucks, 175 bucks a year for a year's worth of utilities and media. And so, yeah, interesting news from Russia, right? So here's another one. So they want to accuse us of being Russian news purveyors. I thought I would share, like I said, a little bit of Russian news. And if they're going to accuse us of it, I might as well tell everybody. So here's some of the 10 top global headlines from Russia that you didn't hear about so far. Number one, they have created a new shipping lane, which the West has absolutely no control over. Gee, you'd think somebody in our news might be interested in telling y'all why they're really wanting to go to war with Iran, maybe. Came out yesterday, I think, or was it maybe Friday? America is now punishing India because they're doing business with Russia. So what's number 9? India has signed a 10-year deal with Iran to fund the building of Iran's largest shipping port. This will connect India to the new Russian shipping lane in the previous point. More kind of big news. Maybe a real reason why a new war is breaking out, a new Ukraine. Germany attempted to shoot down an American drone, mistaking it for a Houthi drone. That's frightening. The Islamic resistance in Iraq attacked a U.S. military base in Syria, injuring U.S. soldiers. The petrodollar has come to an end. With Turkey joining BRICS, that's going to be a clear indicator things are not going to go well for the U.S. petrodollar. Even Trump has said that this collapse of the U.S. dollar from being the world reserve currency is the equivalent of losing a major war, right? So, number 5 on the Russian news, Russian President Putin offered a peace deal to Ukraine, which has since been rejected by Ukraine. Okay, not surprising. Ukraine's not making any actual real decisions. The the installed coup members are doing it all for them. So North Korea is sending troops to Ukraine to help the Russian forces. Israel has broken their treaty with Egypt. So Israel wants to fight the whole world apparently and sign us all up to have their backs. So the UK will arrest Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu if the ICC issues an arrest warrant. Why are we dealing with all of this insanity that has nothing to do with any of us? So the number 1 story in Russia, the Houthis in Yemen hit Israel with a drone from over 2,000 kilometers away, which the Israeli Iron Dome air defense failed to intercept. So that's a little bit of a reality check on the news from the other side of the world that nobody wants to talk about. If I'm going to get accused of it, there you go, comrades. Some real Russian news, so you guys can decipher the difference between what they're calling Russian influence. Lauren Southern certainly never talked about anything like that. Neither did Lauren Chen or any of these other guys. All they're doing is talking about the corruption and insanity in their own respective countries. So, talking about corruption in our respective countries, anyone who thinks there's only 11 treasonous parliamentarians is a severe optimist. This by Paul Mitchell. My response is, when you ask how many represent Davos and Geneva over Canadian interests, and that number rockets into the hundreds. Ottawa is full of treason. At this point, even if they are not directly guilty of treason, they are accomplices to it via cover-ups, which makes them equally guilty, in my opinion. There's another post here. I think I've got that pulled up in bigger form. Maybe not. I can do that. I'll add this graphic to the show notes that'll go out tomorrow morning as well, guys. But it's how deeply this is. I I haven't corroborated everything on this list, and I'm sure there is a whole lot more to it. But when you look at the World Economic Forum influence in Canada by unelected entities and their penetration of over half of the cabinet, this is far worse than I believe any influence that those 11 may have had, unless those 11 were the top 11 in the government in Ottawa. They didn't have nearly as much ability to be treasonous as what the people that have taken part in this list have. So this is kind of a short list. Justin Trudeau, the right dishonorable, the same with Chrystia Freeland, Deputy PM and Finance Minister, Mayor Watson of Ottawa, Premier Doug Ford, Jagmeet Singh, Mayor John Tory, Mark Carney, especially United Nations Envoy for Climate Action and Finance, United Nations and former Governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. We're going to have more on him in just a few minutes. The Honorable Patty Haydu, former Minister of Health and now Minister of Indigenous Services. Marie-Claude Bibeau, Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. Catherine McKenna, don't get me started on her. Former Minister of Environment and Infrastructure and Communities. Melanie Jolie, Minister of Foreign Affairs. The Honorable Dr. Helena Jasek, Minister for Federal Economic Development, Southern Ontario. Francois-Philippe Champagne, former Minister of Finance. Jean Charest, former Premier of Quebec. Robert G. Card, President and CEO of SNC-Lavalin. William Downey, President and CEO of BMO, the TD Bank Group described as partner to the WEF, the Royal Bank, Canada's described as a partner to the WEF, Bank of Montreal. David McKay, President and CEO of Royal Bank of Canada. Ed Fast, former Minister. Honorable Andrew Scheer, former member of the Conservative Party. Michelle Rempel, Philippe Couillard, former Premier of Quebec and former Liberal Member of Parliament. John Manley, former Cabinet Minister and President of the Canadian Council of Executives. Naheed Nenshi, former Mayor of Calgary. Pauline Marios, former Premier of Quebec. Alison Redford, Alberta. Stephen Poles, former Governor of Bank of Canada. Eliza Goldberg, Assistant Deputy Minister, blah, 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 blah. She's Jonathan Fried, he's had quite a few portfolios. Peter Van Loan, former cabinet minister, former president, Queen's Privy Council. Pierre Baudin, Ron Mock, John Stackhouse, Stéphane Bertrand, Susan Fortier, Mark Wiseman, Christian Paradis, John Baird, Scott Breeson, Renee Marie Tremblay. That's 42. 42 on top of the 11 that we can, through public open source information, track to it being foreign influenced, operating under the influence of foreign unelected entities. And tell me that is not somehow treason. But Mark Carney, we're going to come back to him in a minute. Mark Carney is not going to get involved and run for prime minister. He's not going to replace Trudeau. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Andy Lee's got a post here. Follow the money trail. We all know who's on the list. 83% of donations to Trudeau's Papineau riding in 2016 came from outside of Quebec. Imagine that. 2/3 came from around 50 Chinese donors and were given in the span of 48 hours between July 6th and 7th. How did he get in again? Elections Canada shows 3 donations received on July 6th from Tiger Wan, totaling $5,000 almost. Reportedly a former high-ranking officer of the CPCP's People Liberation Army. So even the military, CCP military, was getting involved in making sure that Trudeau got his seat in 2016. And why does the government think that we're trying to usurp them and shed bad light on them? Well, there's just a few reasons why. Again, from some of those 42 members that we can openly source out and find out their allegiances are not in Canadians' best interests. We've got the Aga Khan scandal, SNC scandal, We scandal, Cash for Access scandal, Green Slush Fund scandal, Winnipeg Lab scandal, Rose Knight scandal, foreign interference, Arrive scam, uncontrolled, unvetted immigration, terrorists given citizenship, use of emergencies act, vaccine mandates, least transparent government ever, record homelessness, record tent cities, record food bank usage, incompetent, divisive trader, to name a few good reasons why Canada is in such dire straits. I think that was a pretty accurate list for people to, you know, I sometimes use the hashtag on X, hashtag Banana Canada, because it's the only way to describe it as a republic. Is not a democracy. But meanwhile, in Winnipeg, this is what they got. Yeah, go diversity in Winnipeg, or something. I really don't know what else to say. Some of the comments on there have been absolutely unbelievable, saying they don't do this where they come from. Why are we tolerating it here? Interesting comments. So this one's from a Blacklock's report. New audit. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Another 45 million in losses under future entrepreneur program. Best known borrowers include husband of foreign minister Melanie Jolie. She has recused herself from all discussions while she's so busy rolling her eyes at any questions that she might be asked about foreign policy while she is continuing to pillage Canada. And well, her husband certainly is, being one of the biggest benefactors of another $45 million. That's why, every week it's another 50 million or, another, a few $billion scandal with this crime syndicate. So this one here is a post from Tom Quiggins, and I've got the full article pulled up for it. But Canada has become a hub of Islamist terror financing. What have we been saying here, folks? What have we been talking about? Why are we so censored? It has nothing to do with being a racist, and I want to say again, we need to speak out about this, and we cannot allow them to silence us under this terminology of Islamophobia. There is no such thing as a phobia, an irrational fear or unreasonable fear of something. There is no such thing as an irrational or unreasonable fear of what Islam will do. And Canada has become a hub of terror financing. Islamist extremism is on the march. I'm just going to read this because it's real short. As Hamas, ISIS, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Houthis and Al-Shabaab unleash attacks against the West, highly organized support for radicalized violence parades openly in our city streets. What connects them all is money. As Haras Rafiq tells Brian Lilly this week, and he says Canada has become a critical nexus of funding from Qatar, Iran, and other sponsors connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. Rafiq, a director at Secure Canada, is with the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy, and served as anti-extremism advisor to top United Kingdom ministers. He explains how Islamists exploit Canada's system to launder billions here and spread money globally to promote the ideology of destroying Israel and spreading Sharia law worldwide. No arguments from me. This is exactly what we're getting, and our government is in bed with them 100%. 100%. So I got a comment or a message today from somebody that works in the employment sector in finding people for jobs. And what they're being overrun with now is people, foreigners coming here, being told that they have to change their designation when they're coming here. And literally half of them time on the plane are changing their status to refugee so that they can get in here and get put into an employment agency and get one of these government sector jobs. So that's happening. That is happening. They're just changing, Trudeau and the Liberal Party. Oh, we're going to pull back on our student visa, blah, 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 blah. No, they're not. All they're doing is telling people mid-flight change their status to refugee status instead. So the invasion continues, right? So here we've got a 4-minute video. I'm gonna play the whole thing for this one, guys. This is from Dre Humphrey. Again, another rebel piece. I like Dre. Ezra. It's not about like. Let's hear what she's put together in this 4-minute clip. It's important. I think I might have it muted.
For the vaccine clinical trials didn't include pregnant women, certainly these initial clinical trials. But there's no biological reason why the vaccine wouldn't be effective and safe during pregnancy. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization has also said, look, we know that the clinical trials didn't include this group, but
everybody who's pregnant, when your vaccine time comes up, it absolutely is something that you should do, and we do encourage that. There's lots of good data now that supports they are safe and effective in pregnancy. And just last week, we had a study that showed that protective antibodies are transmitted through breast milk to the infant as well. So I encourage all pregnant women. I can say unequivocally, these vaccines do not affect fertility, both in women or in boys or in young men. They do not affect fertility. There's no way that they can do that.
Liars.
There's no reason to be worried about impacts on fertility from the COVID-19 vaccines. Theoretically, we're not worried about it. There's no reason that the reproductive system would be involved in the response to the vaccine. And we also have more than a year's worth of data that shows us that there's no association or concern on fertility and pregnancy outcomes from the COVID-19 vaccine.
There is good safety data so far with the vaccines in pregnancy, and no reason to believe that we will see concerns, particularly related to pregnancy.
COVID-19.
No amnesty. We cannot let this go. They're not done. They're not done hurting people yet. They're carrying on, and they won't do anything about it.
But it is also safe. It has been tested. We are recommending that women who are pregnant do receive the vaccine for the protection of themselves, protection of their baby as well. And that is has been proven. It has been accepted by the Health Canada, by the World Health Organization, by the FDA. And this is something that we want to make sure that we can protect everyone. Women who are pregnant, it is entirely safe and recommended for them to receive the vaccine for themselves, their own protection, the safety of their loved ones.
100% we were lied to every step of the way. They have stolen lives, harmed millions worldwide, and we just cannot just let this go. In my opinion, you know, the evidence is out there, but this is just another reason that makes those men rotting in jail, the persecution of Tamara Litch and Chris Barber, all of that, such a hypocrisy. They were right, and they continue down this insane trajectory to protect themselves for the profit and the money that they're making. Before I get too bent out of that, I still got a little bit of a show to finish up for you guys here, so a few more things to wind you up. This one's from Kirk Lumamov. Not sure who or where he's from, but he's pays attention to Canadian politics and he's on point. So this is where it just clown world gets even crazier, right? So a glorified provincial party is going to hold the rest of Canada hostage to Justin Trudeau's Liberals so that they can get some more peanuts out of them. What a ridiculous state of affairs. The Liberals will roll out the red carpet to the Bloc as usual. Somehow I have a feeling it will cost Albertans as usual, and there is nothing here he is willing to do, nothing anyone here is willing to do anything about it. So I don't know. It's going to be absurd. I am still extremely upset that how is it that we have a provincial party has the effect and power in Parliament? Isn't that supposed to be a national representation? Why doesn't every province have a party in Ottawa if this is the case? So now that Meat Muppet Singh has taken his blocks and threatening to go home, these guys are going to step up and extort the West for whatever they think that they can get out of Trudeau to keep him in power, right? So here we got from gov.xe. After calling the Liberal NDP government a false majority, Bloc leader Blanchette says he'll now prop up the Liberals if they meet his demands. So we're going to listen to a minute and 37 seconds of this. But after Jagmeet Singh broke the confidence agreement and divorced Trudeau last week, this is why Canadians hate Quebec so much. And you know what?
The numbers don't work for
Can't argue.
They don't have enough seats in the House of Commons to take the Trudeau government down on their own. The Bloc Québécois is now the key to determining whether there's an early election or not. Jagmeet Singh appearing on BC One today, explaining the rationale behind his decision to tear up the agreement. And he says they've been thinking about it for a while.
Well, it's something we've been thinking about.
Liar.
We've accomplished a lot of things. We got the dental care. It's out. It's working. Millions of people are getting access to it. Legislation to protect workers, and legislation on pharmacare. So we've got things done, but it became clear that people needed more. And one of the major hurdles we had is that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were too weak and too beholden to corporate interests to take on the corporate greed that is driving up the cost of groceries and the cost of housing. And they made it clear to us that we can no longer continue.
And if systematically this would-be majority government goes against Quebec interests, Quebec will increase the speed of its reflection about its own future. Anybody
See, there's the
who is
extortion.
not in agreement with Mr. Trudeau is qualified as being toxic. We are in a democracy, and we are not forced to believe what he believes, to do what he comments, and to agree with whatever he says or does. This is the way democracy works, and this is what we are supposed to be defending somewhere else.
So that's not how democracy works, is that one province gets a special seat at the table and they gets to hold the rest of the country hostage in an extortion attempt, and he laid out the extortion attempt in there, guys, or they will seek their own sovereignty. This is exactly what I've been warning for people about for the last couple of months, and getting hated for it, is warning people that this is going to come, and they need to understand the conversation. And Quebec is going to do it if they don't get out of Trudeau what he wants, which means more for them. It's just absolutely, coalitions should not be allowed. The Bloc should not have standing. Exactly. They represent one province, not Canadians. They should not be even sitting at the House of Commons. Absolutely. This is all that corruption that is intent to just keep us divided. And you know what, Kim Elchuk, that's what the French parasites have been doing for 150 years. And that's what the French parasites have been saying about the English in Canada for 150 years. This is a story going back to the beginning of our country. And it's all such total bullshit. Total bullshit. Absolutely, Stefan, that was a threat. Give us more or we will separate. That was what he was saying there. That if you, just because you don't agree with Trudeau, you're toxic. No, we will extort you instead. We get called Russians if we don't agree with Trudeau. He just gets called toxic and threatens for his freedom, right? I hope he really doesn't try to do something like that, Yoholo, because Canada's Canadians to screw up. Trump doesn't get to conquest Canada. 100% they're run by criminals in all parties, whether they're engaging in crimes or covering up crimes. That is the government of #Banana Canada. When the chat's going too fast, I'm getting too old. Chat's going too fast. I see that, PDS. Let's see here. It's always like that with the Bloc. That's how they get equal representation in the House, right? Well, they're partially separated. They have done more of the work. They're prepared to separate more so than we are. The rest of Canada is years behind that, dealing with that. So that was why the desperation, why we had to keep them, because nobody was prepared for it, and that time is going to come again. Yeah, they don't like their government that much either right now, but they will if their government gets them a bunch of perks and benefits. They'll tolerate it, and they'll deal with it. Absolutely. Just put a number sign in front of that, Banana Canada, and you'll start creating a search base for that. If you go into the search bar in any platform, you type it in, and you can get the comments that relates to time anybody's ever used that. You know, as you see up here in Watch, if I were to click Watch, it will pull up everything that people have used the word watch in. Here it is again. So Gov puts it all in his the best stuff. So start using #Banana Canada, and it'll start to populate more stories and information. So here is a message to the Bloc Québécois from Salty Canuck. You are the most anti-Canadian party in Canada. You will not hold us hostage like the NDP. You shouldn't even be a part of Canada. You wanted to separate, so F off and leave. I apologize to my friends in Quebec. I have friends there too. There is no video here or audio on this one, guys. You wanted to separate, so F off. Canada, we cannot vote our way out of this. I believe civil war will hit Canada in the coming years. We are at a tipping point. If we want to be a sovereign nation, we have to take it back to the cycle of corruption will continue. Only way to stop is to stand up and make it stop. Will Canadians stand up, or will a fringe minority have to step and save Canada? Starting to look that way. And this is exactly what I've been afraid of. Exactly what I see coming, exactly what they want to happen. They want us fighting and hating each other. And this French-English divide, these guys are weaponizing it again, as they have done for 400 years here in Canada and the last 150 years through deception and word salad, gobbledygook, and lies in fake monopoly documents. And meanwhile, in Canada, this is what we've got instead. So this is one from gov.x saying there are less than 500 firearm-related deaths in Canada every year. So the government says firearms need to be restricted more. There are more than 8,000 opioid deaths every year. So government says it should be easier to access opioids. Things are so bad in BC, the water supply is turning toxic.
More than 8 years after BC declared a public health emergency, the province's toxic drug crisis rages on. Thousands of people have since died, most of them from the highly potent opioid fentanyl. And now new data shows just how much of it is flowing through the streets of major cities. Here's CTV's Kamal Karamali.
Most days, it's tough to miss the overt opioid use on Vancouver streets.
A lot of product comes through the ports of Vancouver.
Now, new data shows the greater Vancouver area far outpaces other Canadian cities when it comes to fentanyl use.
It's this magnet that draws people in.
Statistics Canada measured norfentanyl in wastewater across the country. That's what forms after fentanyl is broken down in the body. It found Metro Vancouver had 4 to 5 times higher levels of norfentanyl on average compared to other cities. At its peak in the 2-year time period measured, Metro Vancouver had more than 46 milligrams of norfentanyl per day for every 100,000 people, roughly 8 times more than Edmonton and Toronto. By the end of 2023, an even bigger gap, with Metro Vancouver measuring more than 10 times the amount of norfentanyl.
People that I work with, they use fentanyl every day, no matter what. What fluctuates is how much actual fentanyl is in the drugs that they're buying. Your drugs are going to contain, on average, 3 to 6% fentanyl.
It's been more than 8 years since BC declared a public health emergency over the number of opioid deaths. Since then, more than 15,000 people have died from toxic drugs in the province. Police have displayed one drug bust after another, but still the toxic drugs continue to flow through the streets.
When the police seize a drug supply and shut down dealers, that causes both increased violence as gangs and others will fight for that territory, and it removes safer options from the drug supply.
The Federal Mental Health and Addictions Minister's Office told CTV News it'll continue to support provinces, although would not provide any specifics. Meanwhile, advocates continue to call on more harm reduction sites and legalization. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
So, yeah, well, our government is stuck on more and more and more of this. Even our waterways are being polluted with these toxic drugs. And, it's dangerous to the waterways, but you should take it. The doctors will tell you should take it, right? And meanwhile, in Geneva, according to the Gateway Pundit, the World Economic Forum finally tells the truth about COVID. It was a test for our obedience to rapidly forming New World Order. Remember that old meme that COVID was an IQ test and many were failing? I just thought that, and I warned you 5 years ago. And every day ever since about this World Economic Forum. So now we get to some of the juicy solutions. Mr. Mark Carney, this is thanks post from Andy Lee. Carney forgoes trying to get elected, straight to the power seat, right? Kind of like Kamala, no primaries, no election, no voting, just give her the anointment. Well, Carney just gets the anointment and settles for an anointment to a made-up special role. They made up a new job just for him, created by longtime pal Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney set to take role as Trudeau's special advisors. Trudeau's special advisor. Who is Mark Carney besides absolutely Carney is a POS. Interesting point. One of the reasons why they wouldn't run him as a show pony in the election was they did a poll and less than 4% of Canadians actually recognized who he was. So who is Mark Carney? Well, this is a little throw together from Marty up north. He's agreed to come work for Trudeau. Yep, as special advisor. So he hasn't worked in Canada for over a decade. He's the United Nations Special Envoy for Climate Action. He leads Brookfield Asset Management's environmental, social and governance efforts. He's the co-chair of the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. He's been to more WEF conferences as a speaker than any other Canadian MP. He has profited more from the climate scam than any other Canadian MP, except maybe Climate Barbie, because nobody knows where the 93 billion or 63 billion or whatever it is that she absconded with went. So maybe that'll turn up in her tickle trunk down the road. But anyway, Climate Barbie. Some say his long-term goal is to become Trudeau's replacement as PM. I don't see it. Why would he take such a shitty job when he's already, in the King's special suite at events and yada, 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 right? So no, he's not going to, that Trudeau's job is beneath him. Trudeau is a muppet of his. He will not do that, but he'll come on as a special advisor. Some say, so if he got in as PM, he'd make Gilbo look like an amateur when it comes to pushing failed ideology. Don't be fooled, folks. He is another self-serving liberal out to make himself rich. Like Trudeau, he doesn't give a F about everyday Canadians. Well, all of that is true, except for he's not even a liberal. He is a through and through hardcore Bilderberg, elite level globalist, one of the controllers of the controllers. Trudeau is a controller. Peliev is going to be a controller. These are the controllers of the controllers. He is more in the level of Obama per se. And this one here, you can't even make this shit up. This was in my inbox first thing this morning, as if the clown world insanity meat muppets weren't crazy enough. Wait till you get a load of this little 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Go run right out there and, make sure that your Netflix subscription is up to date.
This is a show about our future. The world is facing a lot of big challenges right now.
Climate change,
creating responsible AI,
misinformation,
Income inequality,
dealing with infectious diseases.
but I believe we can solve them. How will artificial intelligence impact society? Crafted text to my son using Gen Z slang. Yo, fam, what's good? How you vibing?
At a certain point, AI will be good enough to build a better AI. So AI builds a better AI, which builds a better, which builds better, which builds better, which builds better, which builds better.
It's getting hard to write science fiction. There's always been conspiracy theories. We underestimate how creative Americans are.
Bill Gates is part of a reptilian race that includes Tom Hanks and Lady Gaga.
entertainment and information are a lot closer together than they ever have been before. There's no way to stop it.
I don't have the solution.
Come on, Bill.
We have to give up hydrocarbons almost entirely. Climate change benefits by having lots of young activists.
I operate from love of my home and the people.
I learn from them just like I do from the scientists coming up with the breakthroughs.
We have the obscene situation where there are three people, you being one of them, who own more wealth than the bottom half of America.
Is the system working?
In your judgment, is it working? What do you think?
So we've got a lot of work to do. The sooner, the better. My hope to eradicate malaria in my lifetime. I want to eradicate in my lifetime. It's a tougher constraint. So.
If Bill Gates didn't exist, you have to make him up. If he did, no one believes the character.
We have to drive innovation to get ahead of these challenges.
Do you agree to do it?
Absolutely.
Be terrified, people. Be terrified. And by the way, he is absolutely screw Bono, another freak show meat muppet. He is absolutely a media construct, and Bono said, "Oh, we'd have to make him up, but nobody would believe the character." I say bullshit, because they'll believe Kamala Harris is, on par with Donald Trump being a 100% media construct. She's failed everything, just like Bill Gates has murdered a bunch of people, but somehow they are the answer. They are the solution, right? So, gone a little long here. I'll add this into the Substack for tomorrow. We're not going to go through it here, but she really, kind of breaks down. She's kind of new in this space of being released from the clutches of the mercenary media, trying to make her way. I don't know anything really about this Jasmine Line, but I did catch this where she talks about the rise of the conservatives, and kind of it was a little bit strange, because she doesn't even really know who Pierre Poilievre is at this point, but she couldn't even say his name even remotely. But what she's referring to is the hot topic of what's going on here. So it's interesting to look at how former mercenary media members see the rise of conservatism in not just Canada, but around the world. And one of my concerns is the only reason Hitler came to be was because the left went so far that when that parabellum snapped back, they created a Hitler. And the left is going so damn far again, that we have to be careful of what comes out of it after all that. So that's kind of a wrap for tonight's show, guys. I'm kind of been putting together and looking into something a little bit deeper, maybe a deep dive tomorrow or the next day. But that's going to be a wrap for tonight. Another drink from the fire hose. Just wanted to let everybody else know that I will be on with Jody and Chris in about 45 minutes or so, over on lgm.news. I'm not sure where else they might be streaming to, but we're going to be diving a little bit deeper again into Bill C-293 and the evil dystopia that is the reason I think that Justin Trudeau is clinging to his time in power. He needs to get a few bills through. Bill C-293 is one of them. Bill C-63 is the other, because that is the only way that we don't undo everything that they're doing, and it's the only way that we don't end up worse than Venezuela or in a civil war. So lgm.news, you can find us over there in about an hour. And that's all for tonight, folks. I love you guys all. Stay mighty. Make sure you get subscribed on the Substack. If you cannot remember that handle down there, just remember whatsupcanada.org, not CA. They took my CA and my .com a long time ago in this information war, so I've got my .org, What's Up Canada. Find me on X, a few other places. Yeah. Support the journalists that you trust, guys. Don't allow yourselves to be taken out of the fight, because people are going to start coming at us with some of these terms. The to me, it's I'm just a here hold my beer kind of guy when they want to call me Russian interference because I'm exposing our government. Well, I'll show you what Russian news is all about and then ask you guys if that has any bearing or impact on how we perceive our own country. Our problems in our country are manifested not by Russia, but by different foreign influence. And this is what they're trying to create pseudopaths so that they can, manufacture claims and allegations that in this day and age they go, just like Carney, goes all the way around the board directly to go, cashes his paycheck and gets a fancy position, just like Cabal, all the way around the board, gets a fancy position. Now, if they deem you an enemy of the state, directly to jail. No court, no jury, no trial, no evidence, no charges, just be canceled. So if you trust some people out there in that independent media space, I highly encourage you to make them your priority to make sure that they are strong and worthy, and support them. They're doing the work that nobody else can do at this point in time. All right, guys, if you have to email me, contact at whatsupcanada.org. You can hit me with your best whistleblower story, whatever the case might be. And if this is the platform that you trust and want to support with real Canadian dollars, thank you, Mighty Mouse, for that super chat there earlier. This is the best way to do it. Make sure that it all comes to me. There's no commissions or anything when you do a direct deposit or an e-transfer through donate@whatsupcanada.org. So with that, I love you all. Stay mighty, my fellow friends, patriots, hostages, prisoners, whatever it is, comrades, I guess, comrades in anti-establishment corruption, whatever you want to call it, rebel, freedom fighter. We're all in this mess together. All right, guys, I love you. I'll have another announcement, I think, probably tomorrow. Something happening, extracurricular activities on the weekend. In the meantime, maybe we'll see a few of you later over on Chris and Doty's platform. We're here tomorrow, same time, same place.